Hey, welcome to this video. I'm going to show you how I do refactors in a very simple way. We are going to do everything in Cursor with Claude Code. Why Claude Code? It will do tasks step by step and we can do something else in meanwhile or take a walk and come back later to review the results. The plan for this project is that we convert a refactor to a monorepo. We have multiple packages and we can maintain it better because we have here an MCP server, a CLI and some core stuff. This is my current codebase, knowledge, where I want to do the refactors. This is the inspiration codebase. This means where we get referenced from. Okay, what I'm going to do here is now I switch to Gemini 2.5 Pro. We can almost stuff the whole codebase, so this inspiration codebase, into this model and get a plan out of it. We can compare context windows, for example, with npx IDEX, -- sort tokens. If we look closely, Gemini 2.5 Pro is kind of leading the table because it has the largest context window. We have here the latest cutoff date and even some models with more available context, but Gemini 1.0 Pro is outdated. Then we have GPT-4.1, which has also some older cutoff date. Gemini 2.5 Pro, it's the best fit for making a plan of our refactor task. Also be sure that you're on the max mode so you can consume the whole context window. This is all to make our plan. Now I just want to quickly inspect the monorepo here. You can see this with PM workspace. So it builds here its workspace. And we have a packages folder where we have a CLI and probably the SDK or the core functionalities. And this is part of my usual workflow when I start a new project. I have prepared a lot of starter projects like MCP starter, CLI starter, some web app starter. And then I'm going to use these repositories as a reference, or I'm just building up on these stacks. For this use case, I can't build on code type because it has a completely different purpose, but it's a monorepo. And I want to adopt the monorepo structure here in knowledge. And what I'm going to do is I'm just writing here, learn the file structure of, and then we write add and hit enter, and we can now choose the whole folder. We can also double check the current token size of the repository with a simple command. And since we have opened two projects, we need to open a new terminal and switch to code type because we want to have the token size for this project. Then let's write npx codefetch, and codefetch is just scraping through your codebase will count the tokens. This codebase is 90,000 tokens, which usually fits in almost all modern LLMs like Sonnet 4 or GPT-03. But if we do iterations on our plan, we need a bit more space. Going with Gemini is the safest pick. Okay, with 90,000 tokens, we could send the whole directory, or to be more specific, we can just pick manually the files, meaning we need the PM workspace, probably the packages folder. We can omit the docs from code type. We can omit all other stuff here. And let's add the package JSON, but be sure that you pick the one from code type, not from knowledge. So you can see here, code type package JSON, or you could also drag and drop it. So just move it here. And then you have the 3 files which are necessary to just build the whole workspace here. If you're just lazy or you're not sure which files are needed, then just go with add files folders and then code type 3. Then tell it it's a monorepo, plan to rewrite, add files folder, and now pick knowledge. Since this is the project we want to refactor, let's choose the folder to get the same results. We want to make it a monorepo 2. Also, knowledge should get its CLI. CLI, just make a full plan and don't code anything. We don't want any code output, we just want to have the plan. The output we get from Cursor, we want to save in a file because we need it later in Claude Code. That means save plan into knowledge project. Let's call it plan 01 monorepo rewrite MD. That's all. Let's run it and let's wait for the plan. We can accept it. First, we could just switch to Claude for Opus and say implement my monorepo rewrite MD. Okay, that's the first option, but this comes with some drawbacks. If you're on the pro plan in Cursor, you will hit probably some rate limits if you do too much. Cursor has also introduced the ultra plan with more limits, but if you're still on a smaller Cursor plan and you just work with the plans here, this is enough. I have already made a video about Claude Code and a combination in Cursor and how they differ. Or if you have a Claude Code Max subscription and you want to get the raw context window, then I would suggest you doing it with Claude Code, and I'm going to show you how. I'm going to open now now the integrated terminal in Cursor with CMDJ. And be sure that you're on a terminal in your knowledge project, because this is the project you want to do your refactors and not in the code type project. So click here on knowledge. We have now a new terminal in the knowledge project, and I'm using Claude with dangerously skip permissions because I can avoid that I always get prompted for suggest a change. It just runs through, but it has also all permissions. That means be careful what changes you are doing. You can harm your computer with it. Hit enter. And I just like to move the terminal here. I can close the cursor window and also close the terminal. Now Claude is here on the left. And what I'm going to do is now I'm referencing now our plan, which we have created here. That's the first thing. Read 01 monorepo. And now I'm going to write, ask me 5 clarifying questions. For each, give me the 3 best suggestions. Number it. Second, think harder. Why I'm going to do this? I want to be sure that Claude Code is understanding my plan. That means I'm asking it about 5 or 10 questions about the plan and be sure that it doesn't implement anything we don't want. Think harder enables the extended thinking mode in Claude, which means it probably takes up more tokens, but it will get better results because of a chain of thought. And you can read it in the docs or here under Claude Code best practices. These specific phrases are mapped directly to increasing levels of thinking budget in the system. Think hard, think harder, ultra think. That's it. Now send it. Okay, we have a plan and we need to answer. And then let's scroll up and find the first question. How closely should we mirror code structure exact match? So copy the entire structure, inspired by or minimal adaptation. I would say inspired by, so I just type here 2. What's the versioning strategy for the packages independent version? That means every package will get some independent versioning, or all packages share the same version number. Here I will answer, use the easiest to maintain. And then we have some more unclear things which we should answer. We couldn't tell Claude that it should update the plan or start with the implementation. I will just hit enter and that's it. This took some minutes. Let's see if we can build the project. Building looks good. Maybe we add to the CLI some test command. Create a help command inside the CLI so we can run and test it. This seems good. Claude has already tested. Let's try it to run pm knowledge test help, and this looks pretty good. The refactor is done. We have now created a plan with Gemini and executed it within Claude Code based on an MD file. I use this workflow when I have a large code base and I need to plan a lot within Gemini, so I can use the large context window of Gemini, then execute it in Claude Code. If you're doing specific file changes or you just don't have this large code base, then Claude Code planning is almost enough. You can just tell Claude Code, hey, create me a plan, iterate over it, and then just execute it. It works better if you create a MD file and iterate over this instead of just planning in the Claude Code CLI. This gives you a good compromise of working in the CLI, get the whole context window and this unlimited steps by Claude Code, but you can always use other models within Cursor and switch to O3 if you have more complicated tasks and need to try out some other stuff. So this is an example of one workflow I'm doing. If you don't use Cursor at all and you just want to use Claude Code, but with Gemini, so you can plan in Gemini, you have some options here. First, you could use a CLI like CodeFetch, where you get your whole code base into a markdown format, and you can also filter it with include dir or exclude dir. This is very similar to RepoMix or RepoPrompt. All are good projects, so choose what you like. CodeFetch is more the light version of it. Just type in the terminal mpx CodeFetch, include dir, and then you can write here, for example, packages. You will get now the token size, 6,000 tokens, and then you get a file with the codebase and a tree. You can also prepare custom prompts, install it in your project using configuration files, that you don't have to use the CLI with these custom commands all the time. There is also a strategy for splitting the tokens between truncated and sequential. You can save some tokens here. If you're finished, then you can put everything into AI Studio, create your plan there, then you can paste it into Claude Code. Some days ago, Gemini CLI was released, meaning you can use the CLI to plan and then you can execute it in Claude. There's also an interesting Reddit thread about using Gemini CLI only for planning, where you can just trigger Gemini CLI within Claude Code. That means you can just work inside Claude Code and trigger behind the Gemini CLI. This is a bit more advanced stuff. So these are the options. There are a lot of other tools. A lot of people are already using this workflow, myself included. I've created an interview some months ago with Andrew Jefferson, which is the creator of Cursor Tools, and it's now called Vibe Tools. He basically built an agent inside Cursor where you can use all the models. You just need an API key to make a plan with predefined prompts. It's a really interesting approach and also a well-maintained repository you can check out. That's all for these videos. I hope I could show you some tips on my workflows and how I put everything together. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help. And if you like the video, want to see more, hit subscribe and see you in the next video. Bye bye.